Hello beautiful people, my name is Taiwo and you're welcome back to my channel today, Easy Sewing with Tai. So what I have for you on the channel today is a beginner friendly DIY on how to make a beautiful reversible bucket hat with Ankara fabric, but you can actually use any fabric of choice. So if this is something you're interested in, then I suggest that you keep watching. So if today is your first time of coming across the channel, you're welcome. Thank you for stopping by. It's so good to have you here. And to all my returning subscribers, thank you for your love and support. I did not take it for granted. I appreciate you all so much. Now please do not just leave after watching without hitting the like button to help this video get recommended to others. So it is important, please do like it. And also, if you are yet to subscribe, what are you waiting for? Please hit the subscribe button and put on the notification bell to get notified when I post new videos. Thank you. The round head circumference is the major measurement that we'll be making use of today, and to take it you can follow the pictorial illustration you will see on your screen right now, but make sure that you put one finger inside of your tape measure while taking that measurement for ease, so that when you have your braids on or large weave on, the bucket hat would still fit perfectly. So to draft out the first part of this bucket hat, which is the crown, you divide the head circumference by 6.28. The head circumference we are working with today is 23. So 23 divided by 6.28, I'll be working with 3.6. So now what I have to do is just to fold my paper into 4 that way. Fold it into 4. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And from the folded edge, you can see that those edges are folded and not opened. I'll place my tape measure that way and measure the 3.6 all the way. I'll keep measuring it from one edge of the paper to the second edge and connect the dots that way. Then I'll finally cut it out. Now I'll just go ahead and mark it at the center that way, just to know my midpoint, because I will be needing it while sewing. Then I'll just go ahead and label my pattern A or crown. It's actually fine. Now you can also cut this pattern on your fabric directly, but you just make sure that you would add ½ inches to your radius. You add ½ inch to your radius. Now to the second part of the bucket hat, which is called the body. I'll go ahead and divide the head circumference, which is 23, by 2. So I have 11.5. All I have to do now is to measure out the 11.5 that way. Then I'll be making use of height of 3 inches. You can make your height 3.5 by making use of 3 inches today. So I'll go ahead and connect it. After which I'll go ahead and add ½ inch sewing allowance all the way. I'll go ahead and add ½ inch allowance. For the first part, which was the crown that we drafted earlier, I did not add my sewing allowance on the pattern. I'll be adding it when we are transferring to the fabric, but for this body I decided to add my sewing allowance on the pattern paper. Now the next thing to do is to label the pattern B or body. So the area where I'm putting a bracket, that place would be on fold when we are transferring to the fabric. Now to the third part of the bucket hat, which is called the brim or the flare part. Go ahead and divide the head circumference this time around by 3.142. So the head circumference we're working with is 23. 23 divided by 3.142 is 7.3. So placing my pattern paper that way. Now note, this pattern paper is not on fold, it's a single piece. I'll go ahead and measure out the radius that I have, which is 7.3. I'll go ahead and measure it all the way from one edge to the other edge. After which, determine the height you want the flare to be. Again, I'll be working with 3 inches. You can work with 3.5 depending on how wide or how long you want it to be. So I'll go ahead and measure out 3 inches all the way. After which, I will add ½ inch sewing allowance at the upper part and at the lower part, like so. Again, this bracket sign on this part is indicating that this area will be on fold, while the other side I'll be adding ½ inch allowance to it when transferring to the fabric. Next thing to do is to label the pattern C, or you can label it brim, or you can label it the flare part. So now we are done with all the patterns that we need today. It's time to transfer all of these patterns on the fabric. So I've placed my pattern on my fabric this way, and my fabric is on fold. It is on fold. So I'll be adding ½ inch to the edge of the C pattern that way. Then I'll go ahead and cut it out. So I'll go ahead and place it at the side. Now to cut the B pattern, I've already added all the allowance that I need to add on the pattern paper. So I'll just go ahead and cut it out like so. Now I'll place it at the side also. To cut the crown now, I'll go ahead and add half-inch sewing allowance all the way like so, and I'm going to cut it out and make sure to notch the midpoint, So now this is it. This is what we have been able to achieve. I'll go ahead and use this pattern now to cut out the second fabric and also to cut out the interface that I'll be using today. So I'll go ahead and do that now. I will move to the sewing machine. So off camera, I have gone ahead to sew the other fabric together, and you can see how beautiful it turned out to be. And I have also ironed my interface on the other fabric. So this is the A, that's the crown, that's the body, and that is the brim. So the first thing you want to do is identify the midpoint of all this piece. Identify the midpoint and notch it. It makes sewing easier. So I'll go ahead and identify the midpoint of all the pieces and I'll notch it. So placing the right side of the body on the right side of the crown at the midpoint, you want to make sure that the midpoint of both pieces align that way. You want to go ahead and sew it by half an inch all the way like so. So as you can see, I did not sew it off completely. Yes, that is what you want to do. You can leave like 1 inch away from the edge. We are not going to close it off yet. You are going to close it off later. Then the next thing to do now is to notch it. It's important. This aspect is actually important to allow that curved part to lay properly. So you want to make sure that you notch it all the way. So after notching, the next thing to do now is to attach the brim to the body. Again, making sure that it aligns at the center that way. You want to go ahead and sew it by half an inch all the way to the end. And after sewing, you want to make sure that you notch it as well. Now that the tail part has been successfully attached, the next thing to do now is to close it off at the sides. So now placing it this way, measure out what is left from the body to finish off closing the crown and notch it. Or if you have done your drafting correctly, you should have the half inch allowance that was added to body. That's what you should have left. So once you've been able to know the allowance, the SS allowance, then you can now join it with that SS allowance at the sides first before coming up to close it off at the crowns. Now that the sides has been sewn, the next thing to do now is to close off the crown and the body. So go ahead and sew it and close off that space. And now this is what we have. You can see how beautiful it is. The next thing to do now is to join the two fabric together. So now placing the right side of both fabric on each other at the side that way, that is at that side that was joined. Make sure that it matches up together, please. Then you go ahead and sew it all the way by half inch, but you will not sew it off completely. You'll be leaving about 2 inches open to allow for turning it out. So before turning it out, remember to notch it all the way as well. This notching is important so that it can lay properly and come out really nice. So the next thing to do now is to iron and also close off the space by stitching on it. But I'll go ahead and insert an hem gum inside of it first while ironing it before stitching on it. And our bucket hat is ready. It is actually ready. See how beautiful it turned out to be. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to add style line on the brim, and this is actually optional. You can decide to add it to yours or not. It's actually optional. So if you have decided to add it to yours, here is what you want to do. So you can see that there's nothing holding the two fabric together except at the brim. So you want to go ahead and use your pins to hold it down together this way. You can just use like 4 pins. It's actually fine. This is to make the sewing easy so that it will not begin to shift and move. And now the next thing to do is just to mark out curved lines of half-inch space in between them. You can have up to 4, but I'll be having just 3 for mine. So it's actually up to you. You can have 4, 3, 5, thereabout. So just go ahead and mark it with your chalk this way. Then I'll go ahead and sew it on those lines that I've marked. So now this is what I have. I actually turn it to the other side so you can see the style lines that I made. You can see it. So that will be all for today. The bucket hat is ready. Thank you so much for watching. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that you gained value from it. I hope that you learned 1 or 2 things. If your answer to all of this is yes, then please like this video, share it, leave a comment for me, engage, let me know what you think, okay? And you can also connect with me on my Instagram page at tyke_tyke. And if you're yet to subscribe, please do not leave without doing so. Thank you, and see you in my next video. Bye.